All right, welcome to RhapsodyCast, episode 8, I believe. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Travis.
Travis. No Nate this week. He's taking a short break and will be with us shortly, because that's how short breaks work.
If you say so.
I hope so, at the very least. I really can't dictate someone else's life as much as I try. So, on this new episode, it's been a little over a week since the last time I recorded. Travis, is there any cool things you've done over the last week?
I've been playing Diablo 3 a massive amount.
You got the expansion going over there?
No, it hasn't came out yet.
Diablo 3's expansion has come out.
Reaper of Souls?
Yeah, like 3 months ago.
No, it hasn't.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, well, not for console.
You are a computer gamer.
I am, but I bought it so all of my roommates can play, because that's all we do together.
Oh, you mentioned this to me a few months ago, or weeks ago.
Not a month, it was weeks.
Yeah, it came out in March for the PC. I don't know. August 19th. I just Googled it. Is when it's coming to the console. It's gonna be weird though.
I like it so much.
Yeah.
I like it so much, I'm contemplating buying it for the PC, just because.
Well, if you get it on the PC, you and I can play that when I someday get time.
Yeah, which is almost never.
Never gonna happen. I have a buddy who, he and I used to play games every Wednesday for a few hours, and we played all of Orcs Must Die 2 together. We played all of the original Nazi Zombie Army Sniper Elite game.
That's a mouthful.
Oh, dude, Sniper Elite Nazi Zombie Army is amazing. And I bought the bundle Sniper Elite Nazi Zombie Army 2, hoping to play it with him and another friend, and we have all had it installed sitting on our computers for a month now.
And well, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, we're gonna try to get it to go here on a Saturday in like 2 months, because that's how far ahead you have to plan with me. It's unfortunate.
At least you know, because I hate making plans that far in the future, because I always forget, and then I make more plans on top of those plans. And it happened one Saturday when I worked at UPS. I worked at UPS, which I forgot about. I planned the GM at a charity event, and then I planned to hang out with friends, all in the same day.
Oh,
and man. I actually got it done. I was pretty awesome that day.
You managed to do all 4 of them.
All of them. It was awesome.
That's good. I like that. I like when things go well instead of the way they usually go in my life, which is like I plan 5 things and then I make it to 1. And then I text, 3 people the night before, like, oh, I made a bunch of plans I forgot about. I'm sorry. And then I forget to text one of them, and then he's like, hey, where were you?
I kind of let things go with the flow. Eventually they'll work out. It can't stay terrible forever. So
I like to think that, although I feel terrible when I get all flaky and it's like, hey, I can't show up this week because, I've got a birthday party, or, I promised I would do this thing, or family reunion with the girlfriend's family. It's always, something pops up that either I didn't know about or I forgot about, and it's like, I feel terrible for canceling.
Oh, well.
Can't be avoided.
One day it'll work out.
That's my hope. So, this week, the prompts you gave were Fallen Gods. What inspired your story, or where did you start? What is genesis in your brain?
When I had several ideas in my head for the story, and I was like, what? Because I had a Colosseum type thing in my head too, but I didn't end up going with that one. I ended up going with something more like the monk's story in Diablo 3, and it's not actually like that. It's just I got more the solitary guy on his own type story going. Mm-hmm. After that, it was just his journey finding stuff. So the rest was, yeah. I talked to my friend about my story. He's like, it reminded him of a mixture of Supernatural, Redwall, and some graphic novel I had never actually heard of.
Well, I've never experienced any of those things, unless the graphic novel is something I've read that you just hadn't heard of. But I've heard good things about Supernatural. I know
it was really good.
It's really popular. So, interesting.
And your story?
Mine? Well, I don't have, like... You gave me two really grandiose things, right? Gods, Living Mountain. And I don't fault you. Those are interesting topics. I'd love to see how Nate would take it, actually. I bet his mountain would be hilarious and cheery.
Way over the top. That'd be actually really funny.
So I had to think of how I'm going to get these grandiose things in my very subdued world. So there was some of that. But another thing is that I've been thinking about clerics and priests and paladins and, you know, these classic fantasy character archetypes. And I haven't had any of them.
Yeah, that's right.
I've had almost no gods. So I've been working on a pantheon for the last, 3-4 weeks. I've been just, whenever I think of a god, like a good name or a good title, you know, I'll be like, oh, I need a fertility goddess, or I need, like a sea god. And I'll just, I'll write out, jot some notes down. I've got 8 already and written down in this notebook, like things that they've done or things their worshippers do. I literally once was like, I want a god whose worshippers wear fezzes. I don't even that was all it started off. And now I've got a name for him, which is actually a customer, the place we work. He had a really cool last name, and I was like, that is a cool last name. Changed it up, moved a couple letters around, made it sound a little bit better. And now he's he's in a creation story and stuff. So I wanted to get ready for the paladins and the clerics, and that was where I created the pantheon. And so then I was like, well, now I've got a bunch. I can make one evil or die, and I won't feel bad, Because if it's like if I got 2 gods, I was like, oh, one of these has to fall in some way. So fall from grace, fall, death, or just physically fall. I guess I could have had one trip, but that would have been anticlimactic.
I took mine the more casual way. My fallen gods, quote unquote, were more they were just beings from a different plane that were referred to as gods because the way they got to the mortal plane was by falling from the sky. So
see, I like that. And the show were based on fantasy fiction. Fantasy fiction guys, check it out if you haven't. It's like Us, but with more blue humor. They're way funnier. They use the prompts in such interesting ways sometimes. One episode, the prompt was mounts, and a guy did a story that was just these 2 people having sex because he's mounting her. And then there was one story where the prompts were labyrinths and hydras, and literally one guy's story was a story about how a dad is talking to his son about coming of age, and he's like, your body's changing, and just all with a slight fantasy twist to it. And literally the prompts were only used, the labyrinth was used in the title. It was like the labyrinth of adolescence to teens. And then the hydra was only used because he had a ring, because he was part of Beta Kappa Hydra at his old college, and that was it.
Wow.
It's so the I think I mentioned it last episode with Nate, where it's it could literally be the prompt could be fallen gods. It'd be like, yeah, one time a god tripped, but this story's not about that. And I wouldn't feel cheated anyway. I mean, the prompts are more to help than they are to shoehorn.
That's kind of what you pulled with that your prompt that you ended up putting on the outside of a beer bottle.
Yeah, that was a great live idea. Did you put this one on the bottle of a beer again? Which is funny because I did actually
technically put it on a beer.
I put it on the side of a brewery or a tavern.
Still good though.
And it was great because one guy's like, I think it's at that City in the Sky bar, and then he gets to the bar and it's actually City in the Clouds Tavern. It was the guy was misremembering. Just so if you're listening into that one and you're like, did he say that wrong? I said other things wrong, but not that part. And I guess that answers I wanted to give a shout out to Kyle Podeswa. Kyle Podeswa, he's a guy Nate and I went to high school with. I hung out more with his sister because I was older than Nate and Kyle, and so was Kyle's sister. But Kyle Podeswa has been recently commenting on our episodes, and one of the things he asked was, I wondered how much you guys are trying to shoehorn each other with your prompts. And that's the thing, is it's not really competition, you know. It's not about who writes a better story or who can do what to other people's stories. It's about having fun and making it enjoyable. So
honestly, I just love, I enjoy finishing a story and just looking at it. Like, I did this. I honestly didn't think ever about writing my entire life. But, I enjoyed making things up in my head. Like, throughout high school, throughout work, I'll go into small daydreams all the time, but I never thought about writing anything down. And it's kind of exciting to be able to, it kind of this show forces me to write things down, and I love it because at the end I enjoy what I've done.
That's the great thing about deadlines. I know a lot of people work better with deadlines. I'm one of them. So it's like, I've always wanted to be a writer, but it's hard to just sit down and write. And so it's like, I got this prompt, I gotta get 5-10 pages out. I got a week to do it. So if I don't do it, then I'm letting you guys down. I said I don't want to be a flake. That's flaky. So I gotta get it down and get it out. And it's a good motivator. I hope people are listening, because that's another motivator, is when you have fans. And you know what, guys? Don't be afraid. Take our prompts and write with us. It'd be cool. I mean, you want to send us some stories you've written. Fantasy Fiction suggested that, and that's what got this started, actually. You can, if you want to write with our prompts, or just you've got something you want us to read, I'm sure one of us will look at it, if not all of us.
I'd be interested.
Yeah, RhapsodyCast@gmail is the email. I keep all of the contact things in every episode post. Travis doesn't have anything he wants to promote. He doesn't have a big social media presence.
I'm not socially active, so
on the internet.
In real life either. So. Well, at work maybe.
Yeah, I mean you talk to everyone. Everyone knows you at work really well, and then you have a D&D group, Pathfinder group.
Oh, but you can't count that.
Oh, you gotta count that.
Well, it's 3 people. I mean 4 people now, but whatever.
Oh yeah, small group.
I love small groups. I don't like playing D&D with big groups.
Yeah. I like the DM 4-man party.
That's what I love.
That's the comfortable spot. I can go one under, I can go one over. But yeah, any more crazy on either side can get it gets tedious.
Yeah.
Any game that has turns where you have to wait for this guy and then this guy's not ready, it can really drag a game out. And one thing I've always loved about Dungeons & Dragons, other role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games, is it's you gotta be 50% writer, 20% game player, 30% actor, to get the right mix. And so, you got to have your story written, and you got to know how this character's going to react to things. If you really want to get into the role of the role playing rather than just the dice rolling.
It's a great, I usually do pre-made stories. I've only ever done my own thing once.
Wow.
And I based the campaign off of Terry Pratchett's The Light Fantastic. And it was the funniest, the most awesome campaign I'd ever ran, and the people I was running it for loved it.
Great, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess now we'll get into some fantasy stories.
Sweet. My shared prompt was Fallen Gods, which I really enjoyed and suggested myself. My unique prompt, which was suggested by Matthew, or Fridley, as I call him, was Slaves, which kind of changed my story up a bit, but it wasn't his fault. I actually enjoyed working with it. So I'll go ahead and start.
Okay.
Breladin, a large continent surrounded by water. The land where the sands melt in the day and the waters freeze at night. A land that was in previous times plagued by powerful beings that fell from the heavens. Gods are what they were called. Monsters are what they were. When humans first encountered the fallen gods, it was while the body of a woman was possessed against her will. Once the god was found out, it went on a rampage using her body as its weapon. While in possession of a human, a fallen god is allowed back a portion of its power that it lost in its fall. That's all they need to wreak untold havoc. After the first encounter, the possessions started happening more frequently. Very few of them happened by force, because all it took was the promise of power to lure a human into giving himself to a god. After more and more incidents, it became apparent, after a varying amount of time had passed, the god would burn out the human body. It would return to where it came and leave the body a pile of ashes to be scattered on the wind. There were a select few who could host such a being and come to no harm. Regardless, they were all killed before long. It was thought that all gods were evil, that they fell from their place in the heavens only to commit the most grandest of atrocities. As a liberator, I thought so too. It had become the job of liberators to rid our land of these unspeakable evils. We were hand-chosen by the Watcher, the head of a school that trained men like us to fight against gods. I say men like us because all the students chosen to attend the academy were child slaves. Not all children were chosen, and I'm still not sure what made us different, but we were. My name is Darvin. Slaves don't have last names, and it's been 25 years since I've been fighting the gods. I'm the oldest surviving liberator to date. Today's my birthday even. I just turned 32. Unfortunately, I have no time to celebrate. I've been hunting a fallen god for 4 days and counting, tracking it across the southern coastal city. It's been particularly difficult because this god has caused no trouble since it had landed. It seems to have been jumping bodies as it travels, like it was avoiding burning them out. The only way to track gods over long distances is to follow the reports of strange things, or citywide destruction. The people of Breladin know liberators on site, and are always ready and willing to provide us with information. All liberators are shaved bald. We wear heavy cloaks that are clasped closed at the neck, with a red and white pen shaped like a sword. We wear the cloaks so as not to alarm the general populace with what's under them, which is often referred to as a mobile armory.
Have you ever heard of the manga Claymore?
Yes.
Okay.
Except
Continue.
I didn't read that. I seen the anime. Of course, that was a very long time ago.
It's really good. I bought like the first 15 volumes.
Oh, we love the anime. Of course, I don't think they ended it correctly in the anime.
I don't know if I don't even know how many volumes the manga ended up being. I think I'm like too short of having them all.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the manga probably ended up a lot better than the anime did.
Hey, it's still got a little overly long.
Did it?
It's one of those ones where it's like you can read the first one and be like, yes, this is interesting, this is fun, and I enjoyed it. You can keep reading beyond that, but that one, there's a lot of book series. The first one's all you need.
Yeah. Okay, that would make sense then. We carry a generous amount of weapons and tools needed to survive against rampaging gods. Some people say that all we carry is unneeded or unnecessary. My first fight with a god, and almost everyone since then, has proved that to be completely wrong. I was currently in the city of Polden, following the god's trail. Based on the information received here, I was very close. It was probably still in the city waiting for a boat. The 3-week ride to the next city through the desert was very nearly impossible for anyone, so boat was the only logical choice. I decided that the port was the only place I would find the god trying to leave the city, so I chose an alley directly across from the docks and sat in the entrance. In the academy, we were given 2 ways to track gods. One was over long distances, using almost the same techniques you would use to track an animal. Gods were always a bit out of place and usually stuck out as strange people, doing strange things when in cities. The second was to be used in a closer proximity. There are rituals performed on every student in the academy during their training. These rituals grant us varying powers or abilities. Some people just get stronger, smarter, or faster. Although there was one ability that we all shared. The Watcher just called it the Sight, but the students had quickly renamed it God's Watch. It's stuck ever since. We don't actually need our eyes when this ability is activated. It is used by closing the eyes and extending your senses. We get a picture in our heads that I could say would be a little similar to echolocation. We get the shapes of people and things as they pass by. Everyone and everything normal just appears black with a faint gray outline. However, gods are seen differently. They are lit up like the sun while under God watch. The more powerful ones can actually blind a liberator if seen from up close, but it's their brightness that allows us to see them from even farther away. In the mouth of the alley is where I sat and watched, and life continued on in front of me. The sight of a liberator on the side of the street was never an abnormal one in this day and age. Several hours later, just after sunset, was when I finally found the possessed. The light coming off the person was a brilliant yellow. The light, being fairly meant, this god was no weakling. After taking note of the person in the small group heading towards the docks, I turned off Godwatch to get a good look at who had been possessed. It was a middle-aged man, short dark hair, with the dirty clothes of a hard-working deckhand. I retreated into the darkness of the alley to watch as they passed. Fighting gods was never something to do with other people around. Collateral damage was always a guarantee. The group passed me unnoticed and walked on along the port, but the possessed man stopped. He turned and looked directly at me in the dark alley. He looked at first confused as to why he was staring, and then his eyes flashed yellow, and he smiled, what looked to be a smile so friendly it was creepy. I gripped the pen that held my cloak and prepared to release it, to ready myself for battle. It was then that the man held his hands above his head and said, "Well," said the child. "Well, what?" said an older Darwin, worn and leathered by time. "What happened? You can't just stop there," the child said, voice breaking with annoyance. Darwin sat back in his chair, seated in the corner of the bar. He had been telling this story and others for the last 20 years, and had been telling them here for 10 of those years. He had soon figured out that the key to a good story is to leave the audience wanting more, but today was special. Today he felt as if he would enjoy it just as much as they would, which is more than usual lately. Okay, said Darwin. Just this once. He put on a smile and continued his story, getting lost in the memories of his younger self. "You surrender?" said Darwin, completely stunned by the sudden turn of events. "Yes, I completely and utterly surrender. You have gotten me, Liberator. Dead to rights, as some of you might say, but only under one condition." This man's eyes seemed to darken while still shining yellow. He seemed to get more and more serious as he got to his point. "Conditions? Why should I trust you? You are nothing but a monster fallen from high to destroy your way back home. Your lies won't deceive me, so I suggest you release this man and face me. Your doom is assured either way." Darwin's hand was still on his cloak's pin, ready to spring into action. Although his goal was clear, he still felt a nagging doubt in the back of his mind. He had not known any god to talk so much, nor had he known any to go so far across the land and cause so little destruction. "You have a point, Liberator. We are monsters, but not all of us seek your death. I need your help, and the help of your people. To show that I mean no harm, I shall release this man from my control. As I'm sure you know, that will leave me powerless and defenseless before you. Would you listen to me then?" Before Darwin could even answer, the man looked like he was screaming soundlessly. A yellow light slowly leaked from his mouth, and he started to float higher by inches at a time as the light gradually left his body. When he was completely free of the now formless cloud of yellow light, he floated down to the ground and lay there, seemingly unconscious. Darwin watched amazed. He had never seen a god voluntarily leave its host. He was also stunned by the fact that this being put its life in his hands. He could have easily destroyed it while it left the body, and under other circumstances he might have done so, but this was different. He didn't even know what to call this. He finally gave in. He sighed. "Speak. I shall listen, for now." The light seemed to waver in the air for a moment. It gave off the impression of contentness. When it spoke with the same voice of the man, but it seemed as if there were multiples of them speaking at the same time. "You hunt my people, Liberator, and so you should. We are monsters. For the reason we descend upon your people like so is only to appease our boredom. We play a game using your lives and land as a board that's played on. There is no divine purpose. The only goal is to cause as much chaos before being returned to our home. Many of the gods wait in line just for the chance to participate in the game, but there is a small sect of gods in our realm. A group of us who are disgusted by what's done down on your plane. Our goal was to reach out to the Liberators and get their help in stopping this insanity. The only problem is that none of us have been successful in getting any to help us without being destroyed first, by you or us. This talk is the closest any of us have ever come. It was then that the light went silent. Darwin was silent as well. He had heard many theories about why the gods came to this plane so often. None of them were half as insane as this one, although he could believe that the gods treat our world as a game. All the ones he met were raving insane and always seemed sadistically happy about the harm they caused. What would I have to do? Darwin said wearily. Fight, said the light. Nothing too far from your normal routine, only now you'll have my help. What do you mean by your help? Letting you possess me would defeat the purpose of enlisting my help. Along with having no control over myself, I would also have to be extremely ignorant to drop my guard so readily. What you have seen of us and our actual power is minute. The control exerted over possessed humans is completely optional. It is quite possible for a possessed human to use a submissive god's power while in control of his own body. The reason humans burn out after a period of time is due to the influence exerted by the god. The force used to control you is what kills you. If that's true, why isn't this man dead? I saw you in control of his body, and I've been chasing you for quite some time. That is because this man, by the name of Jed Adret, was a willing participant in my quest for help. So are the many others I've possessed while down here among your people. This seems like an ordinary man. How could he possibly go along with you? The people of this place know of the misdeeds committed by the gods. Surely he had to have been mad. At first, the man Jed, and all the others, feared for their life at the sight of me, as I know you wanted to end my life on sight. But before they could leave, I showed them. When you are even touched by a god, you can see into some part of our minds. You know us. You know what we feel and what we want. It can drive some mad depending on what the human will be used for. So if I wanted to know if you're telling the truth or not, all I would have to do is touch the light. Yes, Liberator. As you know, your kind can't be forcibly possessed due to your upbringing, so you would have little to worry about. Darwin looked down and thought. He came to a conclusion only several seconds later. He immediately unclasped the pin on his cloak, which fell to the floor with a sound that normal clothing can make only if it was dipped in liquid iron. A Liberator's armor is fitted specifically to each Liberator. It's made out of bands of steel the width of an inch and melded together with the mixed techniques, providing otherworldly protection against normal and magical attacks. A majority of the weapons that adorn a Liberator's body vary, all except one. This weapon is where the Liberators got their name. It seemed to be just a normal double-edged sword, well crafted with a plain hilt that held a blackened jewel in the middle. Normal weapons can hurt gods, but only a Liberator's blade can destroy them. Darwin unsheathed the Liberator from his back and walked up to the floating formless god. The light shivered as if afraid of what was next, but it held its ground. Try anything else, god, and I'll smite you without hesitation, said Darwin. As he finished this sentence, he reached out and stuck his hand in the light. From the outside it looked like he was being electrocuted, but from the inside Darwin was having his world torn asunder. A rush of knowledge and memories flew past his consciousness, but he didn't have time to really make anything out. He got a mere suggestion at this being's age and could only gather that this god was older than the plains itself. After what seemed like an eternity of blurring images, Darwin started to recognize things. The images had been slowing down the longer this exchange went on. He began to feel the memories more than see, as if his mind couldn't actually process what the god saw. He felt an argument between gods, a savage argument that soon turned into an all-out brawl. The argument was about where the gods belonged and what they were meant to do. The disagreement between groups exploded into a terrifying war. He felt this being fall, on purpose, but before the god fell, he heard someone call his name, Artemil. Feelings of loss flooded him, but were soon pushed out by a desire to do his duty, a desire to save the humans. Darwin's sight returned. He looked around and realized he had fell on his back after touching the light. He could not remember what he saw, but he could remember everything he felt. Artemil, he whispered. Liberator, said the god, with what seemed to be a fair amount of respect. Call me Darwin. May I take that to mean I have acquired your help, Darwin? Darwin held out his hand to the god and put a smile on his face. Let's go. The group of kids sat enraptured by Darwin's story. Wow, so you're the first to unite with the gods, said a little girl who sat closest to Darwin. You could say that. I'm happy to say I wasn't the last. As you know, it was a war that began hundreds of years ago, but the end began with us. Darwin looked off in the distance, a face occupied by a smile and a head full of memories. So what happened to Artemil after you left the battlefield? He laughed. Darwin paused in the middle of his sentence, his face seemingly blank. He's around. When he said this, it sounded as if there were two of him for a moment. Okay, Back to class, kids, and you lot, back to work, he said, pointing his stick towards the staff of the academy bar, who sat to listen to the story. Darwin walked up the stairs behind the bar. After 3 flights, he arrived at the flight, which was also his room. It was sparse and empty, if you didn't count the bed and a table with a candle on it. He went to the bed and lifted up the frame. He proceeded to pull out a decadent box about as long as his torso and set it on the ground. A key was pulled from around a necklace on his neck and unlocked the box. Inside was his blade, the Liberator's blade. Brings back memories, doesn't it? Said Darwin. His eyes flashed yellow and he looked up. It does, Liberator. Try not to forget them, for I fear your knowledge and your skills will be needed much too soon. Darwin smiled as Artemil used his voice to speak, but not his body. Well, Artie, let's hope I don't have to wait too long. The end.
Whoa, that was an abrupt ending.
Yeah.
Interesting. I guess not to be the guy who's like, oh, well, have you read this anime? Have you seen this manga?
I do that.
Because I don't, I'm not going to accuse you, but have you ever seen or read The Shaman King?
Yes, actually.
Again, I've read Shaman King. I didn't watch it.
I watched it, and now that you actually mention it, that is actually really similar. But the difference was they don't actually start off like that. That was just something he got like way later.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
The spirits didn't like kill people after using them, but it was just an idea.
Yeah.
I'm still talking about Shaman King though, so go ahead.
Yeah, you're talking about Shaman King. And I read it back in high school, like over a decade ago, so I don't remember much, but I do remember people not dying because of the use, but people do die.
Yeah, they died a lot in that show.
Which I imagine is true, since yours was the discussion of a veteran of a war he personally ended. So I imagine there was a lot of death.
Yeah, actually.
I'd like to see this combo in action.
I actually did that last part as like a last edit because I thought about that afterwards. It's like, I kind of want this to be in a world I might think about building, and I'd love to bring these two back.
And you did some world building. Not only did you involve the other planes, Nate didn't involve other planes, I don't think, in any of his stories yet. Other than perhaps literal hell. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
It's interesting, and I don't know how many, more episodes. You're going to be on the next one for sure.
Yeah.
Probably going to be on the one where Nate comes back. Just
a smooth transition.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be totally willing, as long as you don't do something to really ruin it in the next two, I'm totally willing to have you back. So, hopefully we can see what these guys do. I'm not saying, hey, rush it out in the next two, because there's going to be time. There's going to be time for it. But yeah, you've definitely piqued my interest, I guess.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Okay, my prompts were Fallen Gods and Living Mountain was my unique prompt. I named my story Back to School. The number 2 in the middle of that, Back to School. That'll be quite apparent when I start. Carrying a large leather-bound tome, Librarian Valeria planted herself in her old worn chair. She looked out at her students, feeling a pang of guilt. Where before a sea of more than 24 would greet her, now only 5 children sat before her. It had been 2 weeks since the prank king had plagued her class. Looking from face to face of her students, Valeria was happy at least that many had made the most of the unfortunate situation. Craig and Melinda were clean-shaven. The librarian hoped that, once shaved, the facial hair wouldn't return. Aman had trimmed his into a long moustache, which dangled off on either side of his face. James had kept his child beard full, which made him look like a young, disproportionate dwarf. Finally, there was Amelia. who had left just the hair running down the sides of her face, which were braided down to her waist. "Well," the librarian started, her 5 students eagerly waiting for the lesson to begin. "Firstly, I would like to thank you for wishing to come back, and your parents for letting you return. The Prank King is not known to re-prank people. We should be able to continue learning." She paused a moment to ensure the children were paying attention and understanding. She continued, "The previous time we discussed the last great war of gods and demons. Today we will be covering the first war of gods and demons. It is an understood belief that everything was created by the gods, and all of the original deities played a role in the creation. It is said that Rourke the Unmovable created the earth and the mountains, and the fertile goddess Babslani covered them with plants and trees. Glyvidus created the burning deserts, while Neptarch formed the raging rivers. Venus, god of power and mercy, created the very first humans, and his brother, Cerseus, used his guile to spawn the race of demons. Back in the old days, when the world was new, all beings shared its land and resources. This very quickly became a problem. The demons, with their burning hatred and unholy strength, ravaged the landscape, wiping out all life and turning an entire continent into an uninhabitable wasteland. Can you imagine, children? A landmass larger than all of Mistvale, reduced to sand and ash. She paused briefly, waiting for the effect to kick in. When the demons left their ruined continent to conquer others, the other gods asked Cerseus to intervene. He refused, saying that his creation had as much right to life as any other gods. In hopes of stopping their travel, Neptarch created waves. This only slowed and angered the demonic horde. Rourke sought to defend against the invaders by creating living mountains, called Myarchs. But the slow and cumbersome Myarchs could not stave off the infernal legions that had already killed an entire continent. There are, of course, many other gods, all who wield the power of creation. While Cerseus's demons plagued the realm of mortal beings, the goddess Iambia had created the Overlands and the fairies that lived there. Venus and many other deities decided to give the demons a place of their own. Many members of the Holy Host combined their efforts, creating the Underrealm and banishing the demons to it. As I'm sure you can imagine, Cerseus was furious. "But why?" a young voice broke in. "The demons were mean. Why would he be mad?" "Well, Craig, think about the demons sort of like toys. If young James took your favorite toy and tossed it into a tree, would you not be upset? That is how Cerseus felt, and in his anger he lashed out at his fellow gods. His initial blow slew Rourke, and the mountain god fell to our realm. It is said that the drops of his blood brought the very stone to life, creating the very first dwarves. Venus retaliated, crippling his own brother. He did not kill him, however. Venus, being the god of not only power but also mercy, instead banished his brother to the Underrealm, crippled and scornful. No one truly knows what the Underrealm holds, but one thing it seems to have in abundance is malice. Before their banishment, demons were angry and destructive. With each reappearance, the infernal legion seemed to grow more intelligent and conniving. Their last known emergence was the last great war itself. It is widely believed that the race of demons were slain during the sundering of South Rock. There have been no confirmed demon sightings since the Veil of Mists appeared. Even with her assurances, most of the children looked afraid. Amelia tugged fretfully on her face braids. James thoughtfully stroked his child beard. After giving the class some time to digest the story, the librarian concluded, "If there are no questions, I think I will stop here for today. Thank you all for returning to my classroom. I hope to see you all again next week." The end.
Of the story?
Yeah, it's very short. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that, actually.
It's the shortest one yet, the previous librarian one being just, like an extra page longer than it.
I was excited because I was gonna hear about the Trick King again.
Nope. Prank King doesn't re-prank the same people.
Oh, that's sad.
I guess he could have appeared and pranked her, because he didn't prank her. He only pranked the children. But not in this story. I don't want him to be the guy who pesters classrooms.
He's totally against education. Been that one forever.
Even though essentially what he said was he's upset at how undereducated everyone is.
But the story, even though it was short, it was like your stories are always detailed.
I try.
The gods' names, I liked all of them except for Venus.
Well, he's dead.
Yeah, that's good.
Wow.
Well, I don't know. I didn't really have a problem with him like as a character. It's just the name was weird to me.
Venus.
Yeah, I kind of like as soon as you said it before you said God, I thought it was a girl.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. That's because you have a negative opinion of women and you think they're all vain.
Well, no, it's because it sounds exactly like Venus, only with an A.
Well, it's spelled entirely different.
I figured.
I guess it's not. It's Veinous is how I spell it.
Actually sounds like it's phonetic.
Kinda.
Actually, no, phonetic would be an A. Never mind.
Yeah, well, phonetic and English don't go together all that well.
I don't. Well, V-A. Well, because I kind of expect it spelled V-A-I in U.S. I don't know. But
yeah,
that was just me guessing.
Yeah, see, that's one of the reasons why I've considered. Nate and I have talked about maybe putting our stories out, because not everyone wants to listen to a podcast, and you can read them interruption free. We've been talking about certain options.
I've been saving my stories just because.
Oh yeah, I never get rid of a story. I had a creative writing teacher say, like, it's just paper, it's just pencil, like. Don't worry if a story's not liked. Throw them away. They're old. If it doesn't go anywhere, toss them. I can't do that. I can't bring myself to do that. I have every story I've ever written all the way back to 9th grade.
Wow. I have a notebook from 9th grade that actually details the plans of the first video game I ever wanted to make.
Nice.
Me and my friend worked on it for like 2 high school years.
Nice. Well, I mean, that's my story.
I liked it. Wish it was longer though.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get too long. Like you said last time, the voice almost put you to sleep. So I tried to.
Well, not the last time, not the detective story.
No, the librarian's voice.
Oh yeah, the librarian's voice was actually.
I've heard that. It's soothing almost.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of her, so it was fine, I guess.
There was less.
Well, I guess it was less because it was a shorter story, but.
No, there was actually more, because I tried to have it be 100% spoken. That was one of the things. I always try to think of something to do. Like, how am I gonna... And I actually mentioned that, I think, in episode 4, where it was like, every story... I've written so many short stories over my life, like, I'm writing these, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna try to change it up. And I mentioned that it's kind of an issue if you guys, out there listening, have never heard the stories that I've written, so you don't know that I've done the standard, 5-part short story a million times, because you don't know. So it's like I'm in here like being like, look at me, I'm trying to be fancy, when it's really like I want to be interesting for myself. So that was one of those attempts at just doing a 90% spoken story.
I don't know. I have a hard... Well, because I don't do the voices, so I'd be just... Like, I don't think it'd work as well for me.
If you just did it all spoken with your voice, and it was like...
Yeah, it'd definitely not work.
When is this narrator, and when is this different narrator?
Yeah. The narrator thing, like, narrator between spoken, you could tell the difference. like I can tell the difference based on the way I write.
Yeah, you had a shift in your story from one narrator to another.
When it's when more than one person's speaking. Like if I don't put blank said or blank said at the end, I try to put someone's name in the spoken text.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, just so that they know who's actually talking.
Yeah. I like to do the voices personally. That's just me.
I actually got kind of close to doing Darvin's voice.
Yeah, was it gonna be all gravelly and Batman-like?
Yeah. And I tried to make the God's voice seem a bit smoother, but one day I'll get there. I might try it next time. You know what? I'll try the voices next time. Depending on what I write, I'll try the voices.
Sure. I mean, no pressure. It's about having fun, and if it's gonna be awkward for you, then it's not fun.
I guess I'm more curious as to see how it'll turn out than anything, so that's probably why I'll do it.
Personally, I'm more worried about getting the character's voice right on paper more than spoken.
Based on, when you're writing like the speech for them,
yeah,
you'd want to read it and edit it so much because would the character really say that? Is a question that goes through my head a lot.
Yeah. And Nate and I talked about it when I was writing the previous story, the detective story, because it's like I need to be in the mindset of this hard-boiled detective every time I'm writing, otherwise I'm going to lose it. Because, he has, like, some quick-witted things. And there were some things I wrote down that I'm sad I never got to say. Sometimes danger's harder to duck than a fistful of pebbles. Isn't that such a good line?
It fit with your story.
There's another one. I have it scribbled in a margin here. Nothing good happens after midnight. That's when I get my best work done. I tried to think of little lines like that would fit the character so that I could get back into character if I just, needed to. And then another thing is, like, Lord Brian Valeria, I have to write at the top of my stories when I'm starting it, like, no contractions. She never uses contractions.
That's actually something I started with my first story with Nico. He used contractions because of his character, who was just, like, a loose kind of guy.
Yeah.
The girl didn't, and then, like, most of the characters afterwards didn't use contractions because it was more in older style. Well, they were more refined people.
Yeah.
So, contractions kind of, like, ruin that image.
I could see that.
So, I tried to do that a lot. Also, words, like, specific words, it's like, a refined person wouldn't use, I don't know, I can't really think of a word. I ended up deleting a few words from there and changing them because this character would never say that word, actually. But I can't remember what they are.
Oh, man, I did that once, only I think I said one, and I was like, I don't know if I like that, like when I was listening to the podcast later.
It's always nice, though. It's fun.
So, for next week, it's my turn to give the shared prompt.
Woot, woot.
First time with just the two of us. I will do thieves.
That is actually awesome. Because the main character of the last story was a thief.
The last story, like Nico, or last? Okay, yeah.
Well, I can bring him back.
Cool.
Unique prompt.
Yours. First.
Oh, me first?
Yeah. That way, it's not just me going. Here's this again.
How about a gladiator?
A gladiator.
Gladiator.
Okay. Interesting.
I'm still going off that Coliseum type thing. I kind of wanted to do that.
Dude, Coliseum, it works really well. Slavery Coliseum.
Yeah, it's like that's exactly what I had in my head when you gave me my prompt.
I guess that's kind of how the Coliseum worked back in the day.
There was no one in there who wasn't a slave.
Yeah, I was gonna be like, because like you ever seen like Gladiator? It's in a Coliseum. He's a slave. Because that's what happened in the Coliseum. But also Conan the Barbarian. That's what he does. He's a slave. They throw him in a Coliseum, and then it's like this weird him killing a dude and aging a little bit, and killing a dude and aging a little bit, and then they set him free after 40 guys. Like, if you haven't seen the original Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger, you're doing yourself a disservice if you like fantasy. I don't want to be like, this is the greatest movie ever, but statistically, I mean, it's there. Like, it made more when it came out in theaters in 1982 than the Conan the Barbarian movie that came out in 2011 made in theaters, and that's not adjusted for inflation. It literally made more 80s money than that one made 2000s money, and it deserved every penny it made. And it's got everything you want. It's got a barbarian killing dudes. It's got a thief sneaking into places. It's got the voice of Aku, if you were a fan of Samurai Jack.
That'd be awesome.
He is Conan the Barbarian's chronicler. He's the narrator for the whole movie.
That's amazing.
Oh, it's so good. And then, like, he's a barbarian, right? Like, what do barbarians do? They kill, they sleep with women. That's about it. He sleeps with no less than 3 women in this movie. Like, the original, or the new one, it's like a love story where he pursues one woman the whole movie. And it's just like, this isn't what a barbarian would do at all.
That's reminded, like, Terry Pratchett's, because he does, a lot of parodies on real life in his stories.
Yeah.
And Conan is actually parodied in one of his books. Well, he's actually a recurring character whose name is Cohen the Barbarian.
Yeah?
The difference being, Cohen's already in his 80s, but he's still the most badass person, to the point where he actually blows up gods. It was amazing. And he still gets all the women. He married, like, a 24-year-old blonde hairdresser. And killed a troll, took its teeth, and made diamond dentures out of them. And it was awesome.
I wish I read more Terry Pratchett. It's funny, you couldn't tell if you listen to all these podcasts, but my work, all of the stories I wrote junior and senior year of high school, everyone compared me to 2 people. Douglas Adams, Terry Pratchett. I wrote very sarcastic, very witty work, and, I kind of miss it, but at the same time, I wanted to get away from that, write more serious fantasy. I'll probably have a few stories. The character like the Prank King, right up my old alley. Like, his character just comes around and just messes things, and, turns everything on its ear. And so I wish I'd read more Pratchett. I've heard good things. I read, like, the first half of the first book, where Rincewind is like an insurance agent / wizard.
It's his tourist. The tourist he's with is actually an insurance agent.
Okay, and he's like trying to explain insurance. It's like, you're betting that something bad's gonna happen, but you're hoping it doesn't. And they're like, what? Why would you bet against yourself? And it's like, that's exactly what insurance is.
In that book, he actually he sold insurance to the owner of a bar, who immediately kicked everyone out and burned his bar down.
Yeah?
Just directly after selling the insurance.
Nice. And then they had to go into the whole contract and how that doesn't work, and I'm sure.
It was a great story. Actually, no, because the fire spread and burned down half the city, and the guy ended up getting caught by the patrician.
Nice.
But, yeah, so it just got crazy after that, but it was like the best crazy. It's really good.
So, if you're looking for a suggestion during the week, Terry Pratchett, read some of it. Maybe if we ever get an Audible.com ad, we'll suggest some of his books. Which actually brings me up to the last point I want to make before we end this podcast. I know we're going on a little bit longer than usual at the end here, but, sometimes you gotta chit-chat. And that is, I don't want to say money, but it's kind of money. We're running out. We hit, with the last episode, the halfway point of the free space we can get. Nate and I are talking, we maybe want to do a patron, which is like people suggest, like, hey, I'll pay this much money, every month or every episode or whatever, and then they get goodies, essentially. It's like a Kickstarter for regular content. And Nate and I were talking about, chipping $1 a month, say, you'll get downloads of every short story that we write. Like, as we write them, we'll put them up, and you can download them, so if you want to read them like that. Nate will also maybe do commissions or something, because he's an artist, actually, more than he is a writer. That's one way to go. The other way is getting an ad like Audible, or the other way I want to avoid is deleting the older episodes and only keeping the last 10 or so up.
Okay.
And I might just foot the bill, But I mean, eventually, you know, it's gonna get too costly for that. But we'll see when we get there. If anyone has any suggestions, I'm not used to monetizing things in my life. So, write us a comment, send us an email, whatever. I'm not gonna put up like a donate button. I don't really like that concept. I like, you getting something out of it, not just being like, give us money because we need money. That's dumb. So, Nate and I will continue to discuss that. If you have any suggestions, feel free to answer or send us an email, tweet us, whatever. All of that's in the show notes. All of the web pages. If you're streaming, you want to download. If you're downloading, you want to stream it. It's in the show notes. And any way you can get a hold of us. Travis, you still got nothing you want to plug?
Still nothing.
Okay.
Next time. Definitely next time.
Okay. Sure. I mean, I don't want to be like, hey, make a Twitter. But if you do, we'll put it in there. And Nate and I will follow you, and you'll probably follow us.
Sure.
Okay. So I guess that's this week's free fantasy for your ear holes.
Awesome.
See you next week.
Later, guys.